Howdy doody. My name is Cameron, better known as Venus Theory, and you're watching Volta Review. NAMM is pure exhaustion for about 3 days straight. I've been here a couple times, and it's interesting because it's changed so much. My favorite part about NAMM, I'm just as much of a gearhead as anyone else, but what I really love is being able to meet people and have like interesting conversations about music and being in the industry and whatnot, and you don't really get that any other way, and it's really cool to have that instead of just being, sort of chronically online like I think a lot of us are. So that's probably the best part. The rest of it is just being really tired and slightly hungover. If I could be any piece of gear, I think I would like to be just a nice acoustic guitar. Actually, I think I take that back. I've always liked the sound of the cello. I think if I could be a piece of gear, I would just be a nice cello. There's something so vocal and interesting about that sound and expressive that, the cello and the acoustic guitar, somewhere in between that. Maybe there's an instrument that combines those two I'm not aware of yet. And if there is, someone please let me know so I can buy that immediately. So I think if I was an instrument, it would be some kind of low-tuned acoustic thing. Things that have inspired me the most, I really love Buckethead, Soundgarden. Those are kind of my first big bands. Triphonic. Yeah, Triphonic was one of the ones. That was another big turning point where it really helped me push my understanding of what music could be, because I was kind of that early American IDM scene, and getting into stuff like Forms of Paper and Brian Eno and things like that. Really challenged the ideas of what music was and how it can be expressed and communicated and things like that. And that was, I don't know, that kind of collection of ideas of pushing the idea of what music can be and how we can relate to it is just that's the huge thing that just keeps driving me forward. And especially with sound design as well, is it's not only music, it's those individual moments within the music, the drums, the way the synth feels, the way the guitar player is bending the notes, and just little micro moments like that is really what, just continuously inspires me and drives me to push further and find new things. But I think, I don't know, the biggest current inspiration is always meeting other people and other musicians and hearing what they're doing, because I think it's a weird thing where, the artists we hear about do, traditional is the wrong word, but maybe you know what I mean, in that, they make music, they release albums and whatever, but then you have other people who you've never heard of in their basement studio, with a laptop and a tiny MIDI controller that barely works, and they make some of the most insane stuff because they're not thinking of it the same way we do. And I love especially some of the things I've seen in the modular synth community, where people explore modular synthesis as this sort of hobby where it's like someone who collects, coins or something, right? Where they collect gear and modules and they just patch together stuff and make the most insane sounds, and I mean, it is music, but it's not. And that's the thing I really want to understand, is I wish I could take out everything I know about how I approach music and understand that way of looking at it, because I think that's the most fascinating thing, because I guess that's the final frontier, is the anti-musician's music. My favorite sound, maybe kind of a boring answer, but I really just love the sound of a good acoustic guitar, a cello, or just a nice piano. I really love the sound of and maybe this is because of where I grew up, kind of out in farmland, whatever, middle of Illinois. Everyone had those old spinet or spinet, I don't know, I think it's spinet pianos, just the really crappy, cheap uprights. And I've always really loved the sound of those. And especially in the small town churches, they would have the small upright piano in the corner where it's kind of worn in, and it plays a little weird, and there's just something like that that's been around for so long and has had so much music done on it, I think is so inspiring, because it's like that instrument just kind of becomes like a story in itself, and there's like so many more things that it has to say. So I love just the sound and feel of like an old upright piano. The funniest sound to me is always animals. I don't know why, and it's just weird animal vocalizations where, like, if you've ever heard a cat when they're really, I think it's when cats are, it's either nervous or really angry. It's like a warning sound, and they just go like, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, like the screaming goats, where like goats can scream like, ah, and it sounds like a person. And then I love the sound of, I believe it's an elephant seal, and they sound like a death metal vocalist, where like, you know, you can look up videos of them online, and like they'll try and, you know, get them to make a sound for food, and it's just like this insanely guttural like thing, but it's like, it's so low that you can't do it. So yeah, I love the sounds of animals for just how hysterically weird it is, because it's the other vocalizations of animals that we're not aware of, or like the ones that we commonly hear, that just kills me every single time. What is the weirdest sound? That is a really hard one. I think the weirdest sound, I guess, like category of sounds, is Foley. I've always loved how weird Foley sounds are. If you've ever watched like a real Foley artist at work, it's so funny how much sound can like lie to you, where on screen it's like a fight scene, they're beating each other up and there's like bones breaking, but it's really just like the sound of like celery, or like walking on snow is usually made with like a bag of, like a Ziploc bag full of cornstarch. And I think that's so interesting that like sound is all about the context that it's experienced in. So like if there's, a truck driving by, it might not even be a truck. It might just be like a synthesizer with like a saw wave and a filter going with like a pitch bend going, and I think that's such a weird, cool thing. And I love the sounds of Foley, and especially taking Foley and organic sounds and pitching them down like really, really far. I think my favorite like weird sound trick is recording stuff at like 96K with like measurement microphones that can pick up really, really high frequencies. And then if you slow that down by a factor of like, 8, you can get these insane like textures and things that we can't hear, but you can't identify what it is because it's so impossibly slowed down. See, I love like weird organic sounds that have been processed in some kind of interesting way. One of the examples of that is I was working on some sound design for an app, and it's a puzzle game where you turn rocks. So the first thing I tried to do is record rocks. I went outside with my field recorder and my microphones, tossed some rocks around, and it just sounded like noise, kind of like tossing dye or something, like just, and it's not very satisfying. What I ended up doing, this is absolutely true, it sounds so dumb, but try this. I took a bunch of bananas, like a whole bundle of bananas, and I just kind of clapped them together by like lifting it and dropping them, so they have a nice satisfying like and I recorded that, pitched it down a little bit and compressed it, and I put it through a plugin called Kilohertz Disperser, which is like a weird all-pass effect, and it made the most amazing clunky like rock sound. So in that game, the sound of the rocks in the puzzle is a bunch of bananas, but it sounds more like rocks than rocks do. And I think that's the weirdest sound for me, is just super weird Foley stuff. The best way to stay up to date with what I'm doing, obviously I have my YouTube channel, Venus Theory. I'm told that people watch it on the internet sometimes. I have my website, venustheory.com, and on there's all my links, all my sample packs, all my decent sampler instruments, all that kind of stuff. And then musically, of course, I'm on all the iTunes and whatever, but my general preferred place and where you can usually get some of the extras and stuff is through my Bandcamp, venustheory.bandcamp.com. Yeah, otherwise youtube.com/venustheory. And if you want this exclusive interview that you've already watched, you can go to voltarock.com is the best way to find this, I guess. But hey, Thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.